Don't you dare take that money out. My wife's voice cut through the evening air like a knife, sharp and unforgiving. I stood there, my hand frozen on my wallet, watching her eyes blaze with something I'd never seen before, not anger exactly, but something colder, harder. Outside our car window, a woman sat on the cracked pavement, her clothes worn thin as paper, two small children clinging to her like shadows. The younger one, maybe 4 years old, had his face buried in his mother's shoulder, and I could see his tiny ribs through his torn shirt. The smell of street food and exhaust fumes mixed with something else, desperation, hunger, the kind that has a scent all its own. My wife's perfectly manicured nails dug into my arm. "There are thousands like her," she hissed, her breath hot against my ear. "Are you going to save them all? Are you going to empty our account for every beggar on every corner?" The traffic light glowed red above us, and in that moment I realized I was about to make a choice that would change everything. But I had no idea how much what I did next would haunt both of us for days to come. Before we begin, a request from my heart. I spend hours crafting these meaningful stories, but most of you don't subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, and I can't do it without you. If today's story touches you, take 2 seconds to subscribe. It's free and helps me tremendously. Let's start. I'd like to tell you I was always the kind of man who helped others, but that would be a lie. I was ordinary, maybe even selfish at times, the kind who looked away from uncomfortable truths. But something about this woman stopped me cold. Her eyes, God, her eyes. They weren't pleading or desperate like you'd expect. They were empty, hollow, like someone had scooped out every bit of hope and left only the shell. She wasn't even looking at the cars passing by anymore. She'd given up on that. Her hand rested on the older child's head, a girl maybe 7 or 8, who clutched a plastic bag with what looked like stale bread inside. The girl's feet were bare, black with dirt and cuts, and she stared at our car with the kind of awareness that childhood shouldn't have. The knowledge that the world is divided between those who eat and those who watch others eat. My wife's grip tightened. "The light's green," she said, her voice flat now, controlled. Drive, but I couldn't. My foot wouldn't move to the accelerator. I thought of my own daughter, safe at home with her homework and her warm dinner waiting. What if that were her? What if we'd lost everything, and she was the one sitting on hot concrete, wondering if anyone cared enough to stop? I reached for the door handle, and that's when my wife really lost it. "You're being ridiculous." She grabbed my shoulder, pulling me back with a force that surprised both of us. The car behind us honked loud and angry, but I barely heard it over the pounding in my ears. "This is what they do," my wife continued, her words coming fast now, practiced, like she'd rehearsed this argument in her head. "They sit there with those kids, probably rented them. You know that happens, and they prey on people like you. People with soft hearts and loose wallets." Her face was flushed, beautiful even in anger, and for a moment I wondered when we'd become these people, the ones who rationalized looking away. "We have our own bills," she pressed on, "our own daughter's education to think about, the house payment coming up. You want to throw our money at strangers when we're barely comfortable ourselves?" The woman outside shifted, adjusting the sleeping child in her arms, and I saw her wince some injury, some pain she was carrying along with everything else. The older girl's stomach growled, loud enough that I heard it through the closed window, and something inside me cracked. "It's $50, I said quietly. "Just $50. My wife laughed, bitter and cold. "Today it's 50. Tomorrow you'll see another one and another. Where does it end?" I wish I could say I had the perfect answer, but the truth was much more complicated. I opened the car door. The heat hit me first, that thick, suffocating summer heat that makes your shirt stick to your back in seconds. And then the noise, horns, engines, the city breathing its polluted breath. My wife said nothing now, but I could feel her fury radiating behind me like a physical force. The woman looked up as I approached, and something flickered in those dead eyes, not hope exactly, more like surprise, as if she'd forgotten people could still see her. "Please," she started, her voice rough, probably from days without enough water. "My children haven't eaten since. I know, I cut her off gently and pulled out my wallet. I had 3 20s and a 10. I gave her all of it. Her hands shook as she took the money, and tears started streaming down her face, silent and fast. The little girl hugged my leg suddenly, fiercely, and I felt something break open in my chest. "Thank you," the woman whispered. "God bless you." "Thank you." Behind me I heard our car door slam. When I turned around, my wife had moved to the driver's seat, her jaw set, eyes forward. The message was clear. I'd crossed a line and there would be consequences, but the real test was just beginning, and neither of us knew it yet. We didn't speak for 3 days. Not about the woman, not about anything that mattered. My wife moved through our house like a ghost, present but absent, making dinner with mechanical precision, asking our daughter about school in a voice too bright, too hollow. At night, she turned her back to me in bed, building a wall of silence between us that felt insurmountable. I tried once on the second day. "Can we talk about this?" I asked, watching her chop vegetables with unnecessary force. "About what?" she replied, not looking up. "About how you chose a stranger over your own family? About how you humiliated me in traffic? About how you think you're some kind of savior?" Each question landed like a punch. "I didn't choose anyone over you," I said carefully. I couldn't drive away." "No," she corrected, finally meeting my eyes. "You couldn't respect my opinion. You couldn't trust that maybe I know something about how the world works." That night, lying awake while she slept, I started questioning myself. Was she right? Was I being naive? The city had thousands of poor families. I couldn't help them all. What made that woman special? Nothing, really, except that she'd been there at that moment. And I'd seen her, truly seen her, and once you see someone really see them, you can't unsee them. Then, 4 days after the incident, something happened that neither of us expected. It was Saturday morning, early enough that the light was still soft and golden through our windows. I was making coffee when the doorbell rang, insistent, urgent, 3 quick bursts. My wife was still in her robe, and she shot me a look that said, "Who comes by this early?" When I opened the door, my breath caught. It was the woman. The same woman from the street. But she was different, clean now, her hair pulled back, wearing simple but neat clothes, and standing without that defeated slump. The children were with her, washed and combed, the little boy hiding behind her leg. "Sir," she began, and her voice was stronger now, fed and rested, "I'm so sorry to bother you at your home. I asked around the neighborhood. The shop owner down the street remembered your car, your license plate. I had to find you." My wife appeared behind me, and I felt her entire body go rigid. "What is this?" she asked, her tone icy with barely contained fury. "What are you doing here?" The woman looked at her, then back at me, and something passed across her face, recognition, maybe of that anger, that defensiveness. "I came to return something," she said quietly, reaching into a worn canvas bag. What she pulled out made my wife go absolutely pale. It was my wallet, my leather wallet with my ID, my cards, everything still inside. "You left it," the woman said simply, holding it out to me. "After you gave me the money, you put your wallet on the hood of your car for just a second, and then you drove away. I ran after you, but you were already gone." I stood there, dumbstruck, trying to process this. I'd been so distracted by the fight with my wife, so rattled, I hadn't even noticed it was missing. "I could have used the cards," the woman continued, and now she was looking directly at my wife. "God knows I needed money, but that wouldn't have been right. You helped me when you didn't have to, when your wife was angry with you for it. How could I repay that kindness with theft?" My wife's face had gone from pale to flushed, red creeping up her neck. The woman continued, "I took the cash you gave me and bought real food for my children. We ate until we were full for the first time in a week. Then I found a women's shelter that gave us a place to sleep for a few nights. I used your name from your ID to find you." She pressed the wallet into my hands. "I needed you to know that your kindness wasn't wasted, that it mattered, that I'm not what your wife thinks I am." The room went so quiet I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "May I sit?" the woman asked, and without waiting for my wife's permission, I gestured to our living room. She sat on the edge of our sofa, spine straight, dignity radiating from her despite everything. "My name is Sarah," she began, and with that simple introduction a dam broke. "6 months ago, I had a life not so different from yours. My husband worked in construction, good money, honest work. We had a small apartment, nothing fancy, but it was ours. The children went to school. We were happy." Her voice remained steady, matter of fact, but her hands twisted in her lap. "Then there was an accident at his work site. A crane malfunction. He died instantly." My wife made a small sound, quickly suppressed. "The company refused to pay compensation. They said it was his fault, that he violated safety protocols. It wasn't true, but I couldn't afford a lawyer to fight them. Without his income, I couldn't make rent. My family had disowned me years ago when I married him. They thought he was beneath us. Too proud to go crawling back, I thought I could manage. I was wrong." The little girl, sitting on the floor, leaned against her mother's leg. "We ended up on the street 3 weeks ago. I tried to find work, but who wants to hire someone with no address, no references, children in tow?" And then she said something that made my wife's entire worldview shatter. "Do you know what the hardest part is?" Sarah looked directly at my wife now, unflinching. "It's not the hunger or the sleeping on concrete or even the fear. It's the way people look at you or don't look at you. It's becoming invisible. It's watching thousands of cars drive past while your children cry from hunger, and knowing that every single person in those cars has convinced themselves that you deserve this somehow, that you're lazy or scheming or not really suffering, that you're not real." My wife had tears streaming down her face now, silent and unstoppable. "I saw myself in your eyes that day," Sarah continued, turning to me. "I saw my husband's kindness reflected back. He was like you, he would have stopped too. And I thought, if there's still people like this man in the world, then maybe I can keep fighting. Maybe I can survive this." She stood up, smoothing her borrowed clothes. "I start a job on Monday cleaning offices at night. It's not much, but the shelter helped me get it. They're letting us stay until I save enough for a deposit on a room. Your $50 bought us time, bought us hope. I needed you both to know that. Especially you," she said to my wife, "because I used to think exactly like you. I used to judge the homeless, assume they were addicts or con artists. Then I became one. What happened next broke something open in all of us." After Sarah left, the silence in our house was deafening, but it was different from before, not angry now, just heavy with truth. My wife sat on the sofa where Sarah had been, staring at her hands like she'd never seen them before. "I called her a scammer," she whispered finally. "I said she probably rented those children. God, I said that. How could I say that?" I sat beside her, but I didn't have easy comfort to offer. "You said what a lot of people think," I replied quietly. "What we've been taught to think, maybe to make ourselves feel better about not helping." "But I wasn't just not helping," my wife's voice cracked. "I was actively stopping you. I was fighting you for having compassion. What does that make me?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Shame, yes, but also something deeper, fear. "I've been so afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of not having enough, afraid of losing what we have, afraid that one bad break could put us where she was. So I built these walls, these rules about who deserves help and who doesn't, who's worthy and who's just trying to take advantage. And I believed them because believing them made me feel safe." She was sobbing now, her whole body shaking. "But I wasn't safe. I was just becoming someone I don't recognize. Someone my daughter might be ashamed of one day." That night, something shifted in our home, in our hearts. We drove back to that intersection the next day, all three of us, me, my wife, and our daughter. Sarah wasn't there anymore, having moved to the shelter, but there were others. A young man with a cardboard sign, an elderly woman with a cup, a family huddled under a torn blanket despite the heat. My wife got out of the car without me saying a word. She walked up to the young man first, and I watched her actually talk to him, ask his name, his story. She gave him money, but more than that, She gave him her attention, her humanity. Our daughter watched this, absorbing it, learning what real compassion looks like. Over the following weeks, things changed. My wife started volunteering at the shelter where Sarah stayed. She helped organize a donation drive at our daughter's school. She became, in her own words, unblind. "I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that day," she told me one evening. "For fighting you, for being so cruel." "You didn't know," I said, but she shook her head. "I didn't want to know." "That's different. That's a choice." She was right. We're all making choices every day about whether to see people or look away, whether to help or rationalize why we can't. The thing is, it's easy to think poverty is something that happens to other people, that there's always some reason, some failure that explains it. But Sarah taught us the truth. We're all just a few disasters away from needing that help ourselves dot, and that realization changed everything. 3 months later, Sarah came to our door again. This time she was smiling, tears of joy running down her face. "I got an apartment," she said, almost laughing. "A real apartment. 2 rooms. The children will have beds, their own beds." My wife hugged her without hesitation, 2 women who'd become unlikely friends, bound by a moment of grace and a lesson learned hard. "Come have dinner with us," my wife insisted. "Please let us celebrate with you." That evening, watching Sarah's children play with our daughter, their laughter filling our home, I thought about that day in traffic. How close I'd come to just driving away. How my wife's resistance, as painful as it was, had led to something even more beautiful, her transformation. "Thank you," Sarah said as they were leaving, "for seeing me when I was invisible." But my wife shook her head. "Thank you," she replied, "for making me see what I'd become blind to. You saved me as much as we helped you." After they left, my wife and I stood on our porch, watching them walk away into the warm evening. "I never want to be that person again," she said quietly. "The one who looked away. The one who had all the reasons why not." "Then don't be," I said simply. And she hasn't been. Neither have I, because that's the thing about compassion. Once you truly feel it, once you let it crack open the protective shell we all build, you can't go back. You can't unsee people. You can't unknow that helping someone might be the difference between hope and despair. The truth is, we're all connected in ways we pretend not to understand. Here's what I learned that day in traffic, though it took me months to fully understand it. My wife wasn't wrong to worry about our finances or to be practical about what we could afford. But she was wrong to let that worry close her heart. And I wasn't wrong to want to help. But I was naive to think one act of kindness was enough, that I could give $50 and feel good about myself and move on. The real work, the hard work, is staying open. It's choosing every single day to see people, to help when you can, to be part of the solution instead of part of the silence. Sarah is thriving now. She got promoted at her job. Her children are back in school. She's still in touch with us, part of our extended family in a way. But more importantly, she's paying it forward, helping other women at the shelter, sharing her story to break down the same judgments she once held. My wife is different, too softer in some ways, stronger in others. She taught our daughter a lesson more valuable than any she could have learned from a book, that growth sometimes comes from being wrong, from having your worldview shattered and choosing to rebuild it better. And me? I'm just grateful I stopped that day. Grateful for the fight, strange as it sounds, because without it, we wouldn't have learned what we needed to learn. So, if you're reading this, if you've made it this far, here's what I want to leave you with. The next time you see someone in need, don't just give money if you can, though that helps. See them, acknowledge their humanity, ask their name. Because everyone has a story, and you never know when that story could be yours. Compassion isn't weakness. It's the bravest thing any of us can choose. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest ripples, and those ripples might just change the world one person, one moment, one choice at a time.